Hello, everyone. This is OG. Today we have Paul from Uptick. Again, hi, Paul.
Hey, OG, how are you doing?
Doing great. And we're going to be talking about a very interesting topic around AI, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's quite an interesting, evolving space, and yeah, interesting to see where this conversation takes us today.
Great. So let's jump right into it, right? So one of the things that is to me almost funny, but I would say expected, is the fact that overnight, when you go on LinkedIn, you find millions and millions of people are now AI expert with 25 years of experience, right? So this idea of everyone is becoming an expert, everyone is updating their profile, is actually generating some difficulties with the company when trying to hire real expert, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I sort of look back in a very joking manner that I consider myself to be an AI expert because I actually studied AI as part of my degree at university, which was back in 1994. But I think the challenges that we've got today mimic. I mean, you and I hate to tell you this, Olivia, but you and I are old enough that we remember multiple booms in the tech industry, the dot-com boom, the server consolidation boom. And I think AI is really just mimicking what happened in each of those phases of IT that I mean while I've been working.
Yeah, indeed. I think the only difference is the size of that bubble because it's not just the technical people now claiming to be AI expert, but it's also pretty much everyone else, given the fact that AI is really touching every jobs, impacting every departments. You start seeing pretty much everyone starting to talk about AI as if they were technical, and they are not, or at least not all of them. And those that have a bit of technical background are claiming they've been doing it forever, right? So I think the point we are trying to make here is, again, it is expected that everyone is surfing the wave. It is expected that everyone is, I even see some job posting where, the hiring manager is expecting someone with 20 years experience in AI, right? Which is I think the point here is we are trying to help people realize that it is actually quite difficult to find real experts, people who have experience in whether it is Gen AI or any other aspect of AI, someone that have been involved and working on projects, right?
Yeah, and I mean what I'm seeing in the market, organizations, they're paying a huge premium for those staff. So they're paying, 30, 40, 50% premium compared to what they would have done a few years ago. I think the other challenge that we're seeing is, there's an awful lot of people in the market that are getting jobs that maybe have worked on one project or two projects. So for me, yeah, they have some limited experience, but they are not experienced. And I think this is the challenge that organizations have today. It's the same in data. It's definitely, absolutely the case in AI. Huge demand. Some roles been filled with people with the right and very, very extensive experience, but many roles been filled with people that have got limited, practically no experience. And it's all coming from the hype. There's huge demand due to the hype, and there's pressure on IT development teams from the business because they're looking for the AI multipliers. They're looking to say, hey, we do AI, which adds value onto their business and which gives them some hopefully differentiation. But for me, the big issue, well, there's multiple issues. You're paying too much quite often for low quality resource, but a lot of organizations don't actually know what resources they need as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's almost like the perfect storm for a lot of organizations when they are hiring data and AI guys.
Yeah. 100%, right? So with all this market pushing pretty much everyone to hire AI resources at the same time, whether you are frankly leading or just trying to catch up in your industry. Pretty much everyone is looking at building teams. Whether, by the way, whether you're just doing a POC or whether you already are, full speed into it, you have to assemble a team. And as you are saying, right? Understanding what the right resource is, understanding what the right level of experience is extremely difficult. And then, as you said, once you find them, sometimes they are crazy expensive, right? So we are not in the, I remember, maybe a couple of years ago when people were saying you paying $1 million for a prompt engineer, right? So we are way past that. But still, as you said, huge premium, and you are never sure that you're gonna be getting a resource that is actually really able to do what they are claiming, they are able to, right? So that's really a challenge here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at it, it's finding the right resource at the right price, and then many organizations are looking internationally. How can they, I mean, deliver this capability from lower cost resources, and that then presents its own unique challenges as well. So, I mean, if we look at those lenses, really, so I mean, finding the right resource. First of all, do you know what resource you need? And that, for me, isn't always that clearly defined. And then they need to find available resource at the quality that they need, and that in its own right isn't easy at all. I don't know what you giving your perspective on that.
Yes, and I would say that if we start, introducing concept of location, uh, it's even more difficult for companies that are really looking for the right resource to accept the idea of using resources that are going to be remote, right? Because this is yet another potential concern, because you might have some difficulty with some on-site resources, but you pretty much are going to assume that the amount of trouble you're going to get if you are working with remote resources is going to be 10x, right? Which is obviously, and we're going to talk about that, which is obviously not always the case, right? So I think this is important to understand that above and beyond finding the right resource at the right cost, it's also important to understand that you have multiple options in terms of how you want to source your people, and many companies are still very concerned slash afraid of going outside their country to go look for the right resource. And I think this is something that we consider because we have the experience and we've been working with resources around the world for a long time, that this is obviously something to investigate, right, Paul?
Yeah, I think. I mean, if you look at the traditional models for this, I mean, onshore is always a lot of people's preference, right? But we're seeing, particularly in AI, how competitive it is. It's frighteningly competitive. It is an employees market rather than an employers market. So, I mean, what did people used to do? They used to look at nearshore, right? We used to look at. I mean, if you're in Europe, you looked at Eastern European countries, the Balkan states. If you're in the US market, you looked at South America. I mean, um, and for me, as more and more of these countries are aligning with the EU market, if I'm looking at the European resource, it's cost parity with the UK and with the Netherlands and with other regions. So there's very little, if any, savings nearshoring in a lot of these markets, particularly around AI. I mean, the US market is terrifyingly expensive. You're looking 2, 3x what we'd pay in Europe. And that's dictated there for the cost of their nearshoring. So if I look at South American resource, I've seen examples where it's more expensive to get South American resource than it is to get onshore EU resource. So yeah, finding that resource, I mean, finding an available resource at the right cost onshore is really, really challenging for a lot of organizations when they're looking at AI resources in the minute. So we are seeing people now looking at offshore, but you've then got the associated challenges that you've always had with offshoring. You mean particularly if you're looking at the Asian market, how do we know that we've got the right quality? But also, how do we manage those people locally? Because for me, you've got two levels of management. You've got the technical management, but you've got more of the HR management, making sure that these people are there, they're doing the right things, they've got the right access.
Yeah.
I mean, which is very, very different than than doing managing backlog.
Yeah. And while for very large company, people are used to work, with remote teams. When you go into small and medium-sized company, as you said, right? People are afraid if I don't see the guy next to me, if I cannot see the guy on his desk, you know, uh, I'm concerned that the guy will not do anything, right? And the logic here for me is very simple. If you are in London and you're hiring a guy in Manchester, for example, okay, and the guy is working from home, what's the difference versus having a guy located, in Asia? It's the same. The guy is going to be remote, and you're going to have the same challenge, right? So very often people are concerned that, really far away, uh, you're gonna not see, not control, not manage, and basically having issues with outcome and quality, right? But frankly, whether your resource is located 1 hour away from you, or 5 hours plane from you, when they work from home, they work from home, right? So again, I understand that this is a challenge. People are concerned, but when you have the experience and when you have the local support available, the local, let's call it management layer available to ensure that the resources are being managed correctly from a people and an HR standpoint, then you end up having all the benefit of a qualified resource that is available to you and that is able to work on your project under your direction, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. So let's talk about um, all those AI initiative, and there's a number of reports that are starting to be shared where we see, and we are not surprised, right? We see a large percentage of those AI initiative either failing or not having a return on investment.
Yeah,
And we know that most of the time, the reason why those initiatives are failing is again because the company don't have the right people. They don't have the people with the right experience on those projects. People that have been exposed to real world use cases. People that have been, uh, feeling the pain, right? People that have scars on their body, right? So, and I think this is really, really important for people to realize that um, the number one reason why AI projects fail is because uh, the people that are running the project don't have enough experience, not expertise, right? But experience in doing those projects, right? And the more you can surround yourself with people that have done it before, the higher the chance for you to be successful. Sorry.
yeah, couldn't agree more. Like again, I always pin it back to this dot-com boom analogy, right? I saw people back then, people just creating a web presence for the sake of creating a web presence that actually offered no value. And we're seeing, I mean, the parallels are so clear with AI. So are people doing AI just for the sake of doing AI? There's an awful lot of organizations that are, and I'm not saying AI is wrong for them, but they're potentially looking at the wrong use cases. So having a partner who is experienced in building a business case, identifying what are the right opportunities for them to be exploiting AI for the business is absolutely critical. I mean, once you've determined that, having a partner then who can advise on a recruitment strategy is key as well. So, I mean, it's it's almost, I mean, it's incredibly rare finding a partner that can do both of those, i.e., do the business review, look at the business context, and apply a strategy, and then being able to deliver the resource for that is rare. Unless you go into the Accentures or people of that size, it's very very rare finding a partner with both of those capabilities. So yeah, I mean, partnership for me is absolutely critical. And I mean, you've already touched on it. I mean, the experience in doing this before, from both a technical and business context, is equally as critical as well.
Yeah, yeah, again, and you can ramp up your knowledge, you can get certified, you can, have a technical background, but if you don't have the experience, you still are going to do all the mistakes, right? So I think that every time, and this is a very common um, advice that we give to any company who wants to minimize the risk of failing their AI project, is to be able to tap into a pool of resource that have the required amount of experience. And the way to do that is to tap into an external partner. We typically say, 50-50 is a good ratio between internal and external. I would say it depends on the nature of the project. But for sure, if you are trying to do something in your space and you bring in a couple of people who have done that exact same stuff 10 times before, your chance of, not messing up or at least not slowing down is much higher, obviously.
Yeah, and I'd say the likelihood is your cost, the amount of resource needed, and the cost is going to be lower as well if you've got that experience because they've already learned and made the mistakes in other projects.
Okay, so there's something else that I want to put here as a topic. When we are using external resources, and let's say we go through this uh, education of understanding that it makes sense to, to tap into a partner, it makes sense to say yes to remote teams. Uh, Now, you're gonna have a couple of choices, right? And one of those first choices is going to be, do I want basically a staff augmentation? So I want some external resources working for me, and I will direct them. I will tell them what to do from a technical standpoint, assuming that everything that is, HR related will be handled by the partner, but I still need to tell them what to do. Or do I go for a managed service where, I just give the direction and then I let the partner drive that for me, right? So
Yeah.
what is your take on that?
I mean, for me, everything depends on the customer, right? It's what do they need? Both for me, both models are extremely valid, right? It's what works for that customer at that point in time, because one client could take a managed service for one part of their delivery, they could take staff augmentation for another. You mean, for me, if you look at managed services are more outcome centric, staff augmentation is clearly resource centric. So with an MSP, they're more responsible for delivering a design, I mean, that be that software development design, application design, platform design, KPIs, SLAs. They're responsible for delivering that outcome to a defined standard that's agreed within the contract. They're also responsible for line management, HR. It's their team staff. They're delivering a service as such. I mean, for staff augmentation, it's closer, depending on the delivery model, more to body shopping. So it's I mean, the SLA, the KPIs, they're defined by the client. The responsibility of the service provider as such is delivering the right resource at the right quality. And again, where you're starting to now see some blurred lines is I've seen managed services that are nothing more than staff augmentation dressed up. So I mean, what we're now seeing is doing a slightly blurred model where organizations are delivering staff augmentation, but with some degree of service around it. And that could just be limited, like we spoke about earlier, to HR and some of the softer sides where they're managing that element. And it's the client's responsibility to set the direction for that team.
Yeah. Yeah. So my experience working with both large and medium-sized company, it really depends on how much the internal team is capable of driving those resources, right? So if they know exactly what they need, if they know exactly what they are building, they will probably prefer a staff aug model because they will be able to just include those resources into their team and drive them as if they were, their own resources, right? Actually, they are becoming their own resources. It's just that they are on a different payroll.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if they are not sure, you're trying to build a house, but you don't know how to build a house, you better ask your partner to be accountable for building the house, right? So you might decide on, how many rooms, where to put the windows and stuff like that. But when it comes to building the house, if you have never done it, you probably should not try to do it by yourself, right? So this is typically what I see. The technical teams like to go with a Stafford model because they have more control. They can fine tune the direction of those resources. And then sometimes when they don't have time or when they don't know how, they like to go with a managed service like it's not my core business. I don't need to be an expert there. I don't have the experience. Do it for me.
I've also seen plenty of examples where you go from one to the other. So, you mean to touch on what you've just said is you start with a managed service, they put in the foundations, they put in best practice, they put in policies, process, procedure, and then that over a period of time, it gradually starts to transition more to an augmentation and staffing model rather than a managed service.
Yeah. So one other important question here is when you're hiring and you're hiring from a different part of the world,
Yeah.
you're gonna have a number of things to watch out, including what I would call the cultural fit, right? So this is something that is also important to talk about because very often this is perceived as something extremely negative, right? I will not be able to work with those people wherever they are in the world simply because they will have like German versus Spanish as an example. Okay, for sure, different culture. Are they capable of working together? Yes, they are. But of course, there's a different culture, and there's a little bit of um, let's say um, effort to be made to make sure that it works, right? So, what's your take on that?
Do you mean I've managed teams? Do you mean geographically dispersed for years? And I've always said, do you mean for me, if you look, I mean, culture eats strategy for breakfast, and it's really, really important. And I think this is why having a partner who can get to know their client, but also gets to know the candidates, making sure they're a good fit culturally is critically important. I mean, as I've been building out teams, we've all made mistakes and we've gone, I'm not sure this guy's going to fit, and we've been bitten by that. So having somebody who's got those capabilities and understands both client and candidate is really, really important. And that's harder to do if you're not experienced in offshoring. So just going on to hiring directly, this is where I typically see offshoring fail when people are just getting a single or there are multiple single resources offshore. The other big thing, though, is I always say execution eats culture. So getting those right people culturally with the right skills and the right work ethic is just as important as well. So again, this is why working with a partner to deliver this resource is really, really important. And then having that ongoing support and help to drive those staff, it's always just going to maintain the levels of the success that clients demand.
Yeah, 100%. It's the same with everyone, right? If you have a team that is used to work with client remotely, with client from the same country remotely, they will learn. They will know what to expect. They will know, what culture they have in front of them. So it's actually both on the client side as well as on the partner side. And when the partner has resources that are used to work with a given country, let's say US, for example, right? So I'm French, and it took me, a few years to understand the American culture and to be able to work very well with American people. And
Yeah.
now when I go to the US, I feel very comfortable because I have that experience. It's the same with the resources that the partner will be providing to the client. If they are used to, it will be way easier for the client to work with them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, another point here that is important, Paul, is around the fact that obviously AI is a ever-changing topic, right? Over the last few months, we had 500 different release of LLMs across the board. We went from US to China to all over the place, and it's difficult for everyone to stay up to date, right? So obviously, when you are providing resources and you're gonna work with them, one of the key questions that you're gonna get is how do you maintain your resources at the right level, given that us as client, we are not even able to do that. It's moving so fast, right?
Yeah. I think for me, there's two lenses that you need to apply, or two perspectives that you need to apply for this. That anybody who follows you on LinkedIn, Olivier, you can see the rate of change in the AI market is frightening. I just think back to what I was doing with ChatGPT a year or so ago versus what the capability is now. Multiply that by the hundreds of different products that are now available, and they're changing at the same rate. It's so difficult to keep up, but it's critical that organizations do, right? So again, going back to the perspectives, the lenses, that if organizations are looking at AI to differentiate them in their markets, what if their experts are no longer experts? Companies who are looking to differentiate in their markets, how can they do this if their experts are no longer experts? And then apply the second lens is look at the staff. The staff, are they going to be able to keep and retain their staff if organizations aren't investing in them to upskill their own capabilities around the AI and data market? So yeah, I think training and that softer part, the HR part, is absolutely critical to retaining staff, but also maintaining and increasing your competitive advantage.
Yeah. So what I've seen, right, is obviously AI is huge, the landscape is huge, the toolbox is huge, but the idea here is to be able to maintain a certain level of skills against the the scope of the project that the resource are doing with the client during uh, during the length of the project itself, right? So typically, when you are committed and you have the right resources who are interested and are learning, and you are providing training opportunities and certification opportunity, typically that works pretty well, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, you will not have a resource that will know everything about AI everywhere, but within the scope of the project, they will maintain that edge that is expected from those resources, right?
yeah, I think it's critical that they do.
Okay, Paul. So let's try to summarize here a little bit, right? So when we look at this idea of I need to do AI, therefore I need good people, and everyone is in the same situation, everyone is trying to hire good people, very difficult to find real good people, not, fake AI profile at the right cost, and to go through this difficulty of structuring yourself in such a way that you can tap into a global pool of resources from remote teams and understand the benefit of having a partner because that partner is bringing the experience that you need not to fail your project, not to slow down your project, right? So if you have to summarize a few bullet points, a few key ideas that we want people to remember when looking at AI resources.
Um, got a few. Yeah, there's plenty. You mean working with a partner who's got that extensive experience in delivering projects, so they can actually talk to you about whether it's the right project, what are you looking to deliver, helping you build a business case, and then helping you build a strategy for fulfilling that, whether it's through a managed service or whether that's through staff augmentation is key. So working with somebody who's actually got that capability to assist you upfront is crucial. Then that you need that partner then who has access to a pre-qualified talent pool as well, that has global resources available. Every client is going to be slightly different. Um, Having somebody who can reduce that risk or eliminate that risk of staffing, you're never going to reduce it to a risk of zero, but you would expect to be getting the right people at the right price 95% of the time. Um, so having the access to the right people is key, and then the ability to rapidly deploy those resources is equally as key. You don't want to be waiting 6, 9, 12 months to actually just kick off your project.
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on skills development. I mean, being able to um, make sure you've got the right skills, but also retain those staff as well with those lenses I mentioned earlier. I think that's absolutely key. And then having local management, a flexible engagement model, who are straightforward, culturally aligned, ethically aligned, I think is absolutely critical.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would really emphasize the local capability to manage the resource, the local readiness of those resources to work with remote clients, and the validation of those resources to make sure that they have the right skill set and the right experience in the topic, going all the way to expecting some of those resources to have had done similar project to what the client is trying to do. This is really important because if you have that, then you're gonna be in a situation where you can be very comfortable, very confident that you can work with those resources and deliver value as if, as I was saying, they were, like 1 hour drive away from you. And obviously, with the benefit of a much improved cost, right? Because
Yeah.
again, let's remember there's two main issues with AI. One is some projects are simply failing because you're not able to deliver the outcome. The second is the return on investment. I've seen between 50 to 70% of projects do not have return on investment. Obviously, if you are tapping into very expensive onshore resource, 100% of the project staffed this way, obviously your return on investment is going to be difficult to achieve. Whereas if you have a healthy balance between maybe a few on-site expensive resource because it makes sense to have them and a remote team, a remote back office that will average out the cost per resource and make the return on investment way more sexy. Good. So I hope again, I hope for everyone that you have a better idea, better understanding of what we are trying to articulate here around this notion of finding AI resources globally and knowing what to focus on when you are looking for them. So, closing here, if you have any questions, feel free to drop us a DM, and we'll be more than happy to answer those. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Olivier.